given couple years, we get these big celebrity trials. But Jem, how do you think this one stood out? What was different about this trial?
The fact that there were so many allegations against him, and I don't want to say he got away easy, but it could have been so much worse. That is the main thing. And I would also point out, a major reason why R. Kelly was defeated and is in prison right now is because he ran out of money. He couldn't afford the big attorneys anymore, and there was so much evidence against him, and the case was so well argued. Not that this one wasn't. They just didn't have as much evidence against him as people had against R. Kelly. And also, people clearly are still afraid of Diddy, and they'll be even more afraid of him now.
Wow, that's interesting that you brought up. Yeah, he had unlimited sources of income for him to back him up with that. Thank you so much, Jem, for joining us. Again, executive editor of music for Variety. Thank you again, Jem Aswad.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
As we wait for our next guest here on the show, we're going to hear from someone who was actually in the courtroom when that verdict was read, just to get some perspective on reaction, what the family did, how they reacted, what his demeanor was. Very curious to know about that. I know we've shared some of the things we've been reading from other courtroom reporters who were inside of that courtroom. But you know, I keep thinking about what changed between yesterday to this morning when that jury couldn't make up their mind on that count when it came to the racketeering charge, and almost immediately this morning they had a decision made.
Pretty quick this morning.
Very quick, right. So a lot of deep thinking overnight occurred. So certainly as far as Cassie Ventura is concerned and the woman who went by the pseudonym Jane, this is a victory on their behalf.
Right.
That someone is held accountable for what they were forced to endure, right? So it's a victory in that sense, but it's also a victory for Sean Diddy Combs and his entire team, because he was facing some pretty serious things like life in prison.
Right.
So he certainly is waking up and entering today before a holiday weekend with the potential of possibly being able to walk out of that courtroom.
And as you heard, you know, Attorney Trey earlier saying that because this is a first offense, and according to U.S. sentencing guidelines, when it comes to something like this, the charges that he was found guilty on, he could face anywhere between 15 to 21 months in prison. And I know that his team, Diddy's team, has been pushing for him to be released as early as today. There are some legal experts who think that that could happen. There's a likelihood of that happening, that he could walk out of court today because his plane, for example, is sequestered. And he's in Miami. He is obviously a very high-profile person. He can't walk around and go unnoticed.
No, certainly not after all of this on top of everything.
Right, and the reason that initially they denied him bail, and he had to be in that federal detention facility for about 10 months, is he does have a lot of power and does have a lot of influence, and the judge had been worried about him exercising that influence and possibly persuading people who could be subpoenaed in this trial. But now that the verdict is out and that he's been found guilty on 2 of these 5 criminal charges, that threat doesn't necessarily seem to be in play anymore.
You think about, and I know, Amanda, you were just talking about this, what happens next as far as his life? Like, how do you just kind of step back into your life? You will never really be the same again, right?
It won't be the same.
Right, and that's why, you know, you wonder if you're advising him on what to do after he does serve, if he serves any time, what kind of time he'll serve once he's released, what you would advise him to do next in terms of his career. Does he pursue anything? Does he stay quiet? Universally, I think everyone agrees that he should kind of just stay
in the shadows.
Right, stay in the shadows.
Right.
Don't get into any trouble.
He's going to have a lot of eyes on him from this point forward.
And knowing what Jem just said about the difference between R. Kelly and P. Diddy was that P. Diddy had deeper pockets, which means, to me, if he does end up serving any jail time, I can only imagine it's going to be maximum security prison. Somewhere where he'd have his own cell, because they would say that it would be a security risk for him sharing. So it would be a very different experience.
Although he was in one of the most notoriously bad federal detention facilities in the country.
Was he sharing? I don't know. Was he sharing a cell?
I don't know what his life was like within the
the facility,
prison,
yeah.
So high profile. I wonder what they do for that.
I wonder also the financial hit that he could be taking.
Although his streams increased last September.
That's true.
They went up.
That is true. And as Jem pointed out, it's not like he was that relevant in music.
Right. No new albums.
Right. He was involved in other business ventures, which could very well still be going.
I remember when he launched Ciroc.
Right.
Vodka.
And he's still in legal trouble. I mean, even after all this is said and done, because he's still facing a number of, I think Trey said 60
civil
lawsuits.
Yeah.
But all of that financial consequences rather than something like being behind bars. So
yeah.
That's certainly something.
And how do his children go on now, living, normal, going to school?
I know. I keep thinking about, like, what did they know? How much did they know prior to this trial? Because this trial revealed so much. Right. And it was even hard. It was hard to hear some of the details. It was disturbing. So you imagine his kids.
There were moments in the during testimony when his kids, his family, actually got up and left the courthouse because some of the videos
graphic.
They played the videos.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of it was too graphic for their ears and for their eyes. But it is interesting when you consider the who they brought before the judge to testify. It didn't seem as big as we thought it would be going in.
Yeah, I remember when this first, was exposed, we were all like, oh, all these names are going to come out.
All the celebrities that he was hanging out with.
We thought, like, what's going to happen? Who are these
speculating
people?
Who would take the stand?
All the pictures that were going online of, who he was hanging out with.
The white parties and
then it's just kind of faded, right? It just kind of simmered away. So what happened?
What happened is right.
What happened?
Also, the one thing I will be grateful, if I don't hear the word freak off again.
Oh, I know.
Ever again, it'll be too soon. How many times did we hear the term freak off during this trial? And baby oil and all these other things that were brought to our attention that now we can't unhear and unsee after that. So I can only imagine the things that his family had to.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, at the end of the day, he does have kids, and they have nothing to do with this. So you think about how this impacts them as well.
And of course, like the most salacious details were the details that made the headlines. But at the end of the day, it was about racketeering. And as his defense team said, he might have been throughout all these years an abusive person, but that does not make him a sex trafficker. And there is a big distinction between the two. And that was up for the jury to decide.
That was the big thing, right? So people on X were saying, if you go beyond state lines, how is it not considered trafficking? So it's interesting, like, what the technical term for trafficking really is in the court of law. Something to ask, I think, our next attorney that
we're actually waiting to. We're still working on it. I know it's like developing a breaking news situation, so we're efforting our next guest. But yeah, it does come down to technicality and the way the judge wants the jury to consider what they're faced with, right? It's not about how you feel about something. It's not about the person's personal life and whether they're, going down the wrong path or moral or immoral or doing disturbing, disgusting things. Like, those things don't matter, and you have to put that aside, and it's hard for a jury because you do form an opinion about someone, right, based on what they're doing and how they're treating others. And those things don't matter, though. At the end of the day, you have to follow the law, which, again, goes back to us wondering why is it that they did pursue that tough RICO charge, which usually is something. When you think of RICO, you think of the mob, you think of mafia, you think of organized crime in that sense, right?
Right, but when we saw that raid on Diddy's home unfold in, I think it was September? I believe it was September. You know that that federal agents had been investigating this for months and months, at the very least, before we even saw that raid take place. Because that's how they work, and they have a very high, federal agents have a very high conviction rate. So it is, in some ways, it is surprising, but in other ways, the case, as Trey mentioned, the attorney we spoke to just a few moments ago, it didn't feel big enough to convict him on the racketeering charge.
I'm just watching this video and thinking about just the scene, right? The scene it caused, and what a big news it was.
LA home, right?
Yeah, right. This was just, it wasn't just big news here in LA. It was international news. It was huge. And you were left wondering, oh, what happens next? who are we going to hear from next, that sort of thing. All right, so right now we finally were able to get Michael Babcock with us. He's from TMZ's newsroom. Hey, Michael, thank you so much. I know it's a very busy morning. Thanks for taking the time. All right, well, tell us what you guys are working on right now.
I mean, I think just shocking news. Conventional wisdom would have said yesterday, as it was 4:05, and the jury sends a note to the judge in New York City and says, we've got a verdict on counts 2, 3, 4, and 5. We just cannot reach a verdict on count 1, which was the most serious charge, the racketeering. That's the charge that potentially carried a life sentence. And you said, okay, if they got a verdict that quickly, in less than 2 days, certainly it felt like it would have, you would have been leaning towards guilty on those other counts. Well, the judge says, hey, get back in there, deliberate. They come back this morning, 9 a.m. They get in that jury deliberation room, and about an hour after they arrive, they have reached a verdict on count 1. And what do you know, when the verdict is read, it's a mixed bag, sure. Diddy was found guilty of felonies, of 2 felonies, so 3 not guilties. The 3 not guilties were on the RICO charge and the 2 sex trafficking charges of Jane and of Cassie. He was found guilty, and it is a felony on essentially it's a transporting a sex worker across state lines with the idea of engaging in prostitution. Those counts, both of them carry 10 years a possible prison sentence. So if they were to run, concurrently, it could be 10 years, could be 20 years. That we just don't know yet. But again, bottom line, for a guy who is facing life in prison, I don't know how you look at this as anything else besides a massive win for Diddy today.
Right. That said, what are you hearing about the way Diddy and his team and his family reacted once the jury read that not guilty of racketeering verdict?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of relief. If you looked at the faces of Diddy in the courtroom yesterday when he heard that there was a verdict, I think you could see it written all over, not just his face, but also the face of his family members. His mother was in the courtroom. His 6 adult children were in the courtroom. And there was a somber feeling that you got from them. And I believe that they thought that this was going to be a really bad day for Diddy. Now, again, look, could he go to prison? Certainly. Will he likely go to prison? Yeah, he will. But he's not going to be spending his life in prison. And it's very possible, by the way, and we're going to find this out around 10 a.m. today, our time here, that, will he be allowed to leave the prison or the jail in Brooklyn pending his sentencing, when he would obviously be able to say, look, I'm not guilty of any violent crimes here. Let me out, and we'll see what the sentencing is ultimately when that time comes. But again, very, very likely that he walks out of jail today.
Right, and that's what our attorney Trey was saying earlier this morning, that because initially they put him in the federal detention facility for about 10 months because they thought that he would, threaten or try to intimidate people who might be called to the stand as witnesses. In this case, the verdict is out, so that is no longer in play. So his home in Miami, he could go back to. His private plane has been seized, so there's no real threat of him leaving. Also, he's a very high-profile person. He's not going to be able to walk around unnoticed.
Right, absolutely. I think that's a great point. They've obviously also already taken his passport, so I don't know that he'd even have the ability to flee if he wanted to. And at this point, if you're Diddy, I mean,
why would you?
Made sense before, right? Why would you? I mean, it's it's possible here. I guess theoretically he could even get probation, although I think that's unlikely. But you're likely looking at maybe a few years here at worst. So I don't even know that that's something that would even cross anyone's mind at this point. I think he has to look at this like a win. Sure, would he have liked a complete not guilty across the board? Of course, but as if there was going to be a mix of guilty and not guilty, this is exactly how Diddy would have wanted it to play out, because it was not guilty on the most serious charges.
The best case scenario for him, for sure. Yep. The jury, after hearing the testimony from Cassie Ventura and the woman who went by the pseudonym Jane, I don't think there was a way for them to not take the powerful emotional testimony into account and simply say, okay, he's not guilty of this either. So they had to go with that. You can see why. What are you seeing, or are you seeing anything, whether it's through your sources or online, about just reaction from people, from Hollywood, from just average people about this situation?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how everybody reacts, because although Diddy has, at least again, partially won this court case, the reality is we've still seen him engage in horrible conduct, horrible behavior. Obviously, the Cassie video looked no further than that, and the way he brutalized her in that hotel room in 2016 out here in L.A. So I'm going to be really curious to see how he is embraced by the celebrity culture in the world if he does ultimately get out now and after he does serve this sentence here. So it'll be really interesting. But I'll tell you, outside the courtroom, it's been relatively slow. There'd be a couple of dozen people outside the courthouse every day. After this verdict was read, it seemed like there were a lot of Diddy supporters who were out there, hundreds of people outside the courthouse, and it seemed to be a very pro-Diddy crowd. So it did seem like from the normal people, the average fan out there, that they were very supportive of Diddy and celebrating the verdict here.
I mean, just similar to what we saw with R. Kelly, right? R. Kelly still had a throng of supporters outside the courthouse every day that he was on trial. And as we were saying, there's the what happened inside court, then there's also the court of public opinion, reputational damage. How devastating has this trial been for him?
Yeah, look, there's been allegations, of course. We've seen, you know, how many times of celebrities and engaging in domestic violence. There's a difference, though, as we've seen when there's, you know, footage, when there's a videotape. It seems to, it just stays in the memory, in the minds of people. So I don't think it's going to be the same for Diddy ever again. I think that his star has been diminished, I believe, in a big way, no matter what. Whatever this verdict was today, he, you know, the die had already been cast from that aspect. So I don't think it will be the same, but I agree. Like you said, you've still got people who love R. Kelly, and he is going to have that support as well. And I think he is not going to be a pariah. I think there are going to be people who stick by Diddy, and you know, who knows? You might a year or two from now see this guy walking the red carpet at an award show, which is shocking to think of when you realize that he literally could have spent the rest of his life in a prison cell.
Yeah, you know, it's fascinating, actually. You say that, and right now it's like, what are you talking about? That's insane. But people have a short memory. They really do.
Right, but you know, I mean, you're talking about support among fans, but support among the most powerful people that he used to associate himself with. I don't think you're going to see that, because take for example, at the very beginning of all this, back in September when his home was raided and the investigation was just beginning, the public investigation was just beginning.
There was silence.
Silence, radio silence from
and that
everybody.
spoke volumes, the silence. The silence was very telling.
People, celebrities, fellow celebrities they were terrified that they were going to be drawn into this in some way. And you're right, there was hardly anybody that spoke up. I mean, maybe a few people here and there. Stevie J is somebody who spoke up, and as a matter of fact, sent one of our producers here a text message as soon as the verdict comes down, and he says, I told you not to count my guy out, something to that effect. So yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there was not a celebrity out there that wanted to touch this thing with a 10-foot pole. It will be interesting to see now that there is a verdict, if they try and cozy up next to Diddy. Everybody still keep their distance. I think that's going to be really interesting to watch, wait and see.
Absolutely. All right. Michael Babcock from TMZ, thank you so much for your insight.
Anytime.
We appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's definitely what you said, Jen, where it's silent, but and they might not say anything, but they won't be pictured with him. I don't think we're going to be seeing them attending events with him,
associating with him in really any way,
even on social media in any way. They don't want to be affiliated with that right now.
And this is a man who has, I mean, he is an entrepreneur.
Yes, an empire.
That's right. Many businesses that have grown substantially. Now you wonder what's going to happen to those businesses. At the very least, music-wise, he might be done.
Right.
But he does still have his businesses in place.
Absolutely, which is how he was able to afford his legal team.
That's right.
The deep pockets there. And I know someone else who's been following this trial very closely, our friend Head Crack from Dish Nation. Thank you so much for joining us. My friend, were you surprised this morning when that verdict came in?
I was surprised, but there was also a part of me that felt like a few weeks back that I felt like he was going to walk, but it's been such a high wire act because, you know, they're the things that we knew that, you know, was going to come up in this court case that didn't really necessarily get leaned into too much. And I thought it was some of those things that was going to, like, create a stickier case for him, but they really focused more so on Cassie Ventura's testimony as well as Jane Doe's testimony. And that's what the prosecution that's the basket the prosecution put all their eggs in.
Right.
And that handle was bad. And so here we are, and now he's about to be free to move about the country.
Do you think he will walk out of that courtroom today?
I think he should, and not because he's a great person or anything. I think he should walk out of the courtroom today because if anybody else, if Joe Schmo, who runs the Orange Julius down the block, got arrested for these same crimes, he'd had to pay a fine and he would get to go home and await his sentencing. I think because of the heavier charges like the RICO case and all that other stuff, that's not on the table no more. Life ain't on the table no more. I think he should be able to go home and await his sentencing and just be, have an ankle monitor and be under very, close monitoring.
It's funny you mentioned that the Cassie Ventura, that was where they put all their eggs in that basket, which surprised me that they didn't lean more into the Kid Cudi testimony.
I was shocked on that as well.
That
the Kid
shocked
Cudi
me.
Thing.
The car, right.
And then even the tampering of the evidence in that, like how the evidence just conveniently went missing.
Right.
If you're trying to lean into some RICO criminal mastermind type activity, you kind of lean into that energy right there and have them look into that a little bit more. But it came up, it went away, and they just kept on moving. Even the standpoint of like the fact that this, this Hotel Intercontinental footage got out because his people paid them to not have it come out, and it came out anyway. That is also bribery, and some other things, depending on how you want to trump the charges up. So at the end of the day, there's nothing wrong with being a freaky person as long as everybody is in agreement with how freaky we're going to be here, and that's what he got found guilty of, being a freak.
The reasoning behind it, yes. We heard so many celebrity names thrown into this trial. Now, these celebrities might not have spoken out, but their names were within this trial. The wildest name of this trial for me was hearing Mike Myers' name in the mix, and that's only because Diddy's former assistant worked for Mike Myers prior to working for Diddy.
Yeah.
So you're hearing Mike Myers, Britney Spears.
Yeah, and then they was trying to throw Justin Bieber into the fold of all this as well. And the crazy thing about the human imagination, it will run wild if given the opportunity to. So when people were talking about the freak-offs and just knowing what we knew some of these parties to be, at least like the pre-parties rather, right? We just thought it was going to be the celebrity extravaganza of all these folks involved. And come to find out, a freak-off was really just 3 people, 2 active participants, and 1 person sitting in a corner being weird.
I just hope I never hear the word freak off again. I heard it way too much over the last month. I want to ask you too, he hasn't really come out with a hit song, hit album in years, but no doubt he built this empire, the businesses. What do you think this means for his future in the scene, within the industry, amongst fellow artists?
I think, he's long gotten out of the space to where all his equity exists within the music space. I think he's more so getting into the space of where, like, it's about products and aligning himself with brands. What brands will stand next to him coming out of all of this? It's hard to say, but you're going to rock with who rock with you. If I was Johnson & Johnson, I would reach out.
Oh, wow. Yeah, strike on that opportunity.
Like, lean into all of it. I think a lot of times when people run away from the stove, that's how they block the opportunities. But when you kind of embrace everything it is, with Diddy, with everything coming out the way it came out, this allows Diddy to be freer than he's ever been. And I'm not talking about from a incarceration standpoint. Imagine having to hold these weird not weird, but, to each his own, right? Imagine having to hold all these secrets all your life. And now all the secrets are out and you can be your most transparent self. He's about to be freer than he's ever been if he wants to lean into that. And if I was him, I would lean into all of that, and you'd be surprised all the things that open up after you do that.
Do you think he's going to serve jail time?
I know
he could serve up to 20 years.
He could. And I know because the Mann Act does, like, offer a certain amount of time that you can get for these certain things, it's all in the hands of the judge and the sentencing at this point, you know?
Right.
It is tricky. You had an adult male escort who willingly accepted money to go do these things. It wasn't somebody who got forced. Like, that guy would have probably did that for free if he knew who he was doing it for and with, right? And it's crazy that that's illegal, but the law is the law. And, you know, to be honest with you, I don't think he's going to do serious time. Maybe they'll give him time served because of who he is. And what little influence he has left gets him that. But, you know, just time will reveal.
Jem Aswad from Variety said that the difference between R. Kelly and Diddy was that Diddy had deeper pockets. Do you think that because he had an unlimited amount of money that helped him with this?
I think, you know, if this country has showed us anything over the last, I don't know, few hundred years, freedom is always for sale. You know, to whoever can get the best representation, whoever can, you know, sway the most people with their swagger and influence usually gets away with things. But every now and then you see it work differently. Nobody expected Martha Stewart to go to prison, but she did. Nobody expected Lori Loughlin to go to prison, but she did. And they had the money and the coins to kind of protect themselves in these situations. And every now and then, you know, the law be lawing. But every now and then, you can buy your way out.
Solid final thought. Head Crack from Dish Nation, thank you so much for weighing in on this big trial and this breaking news today. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you for being with us. Actually, we obviously are keeping a close eye on things.
Can I decide what?
Put it down. Nobody else. That's it. Hey, can we get another barrier over here? No, that's it. No.
I'm gonna have full access to the courtroom. I'm on the list.
Hey, let's get some more barriers.
Fox News, real press. Yo, who is that? Oh, sorry, son.
I have no idea. All right.
That's odd. Nobody came to support. Back into the pen. Yeah.
I need a VIP ride. Y'all not gonna...
All right, just get back in.
Gotta work it out. If you're out of room, you're out of room. I'm not opening this barrier again.
All right.
You gotta get on the sidewalk.
All right. Hold on. Here, go ahead.
Wait, stop. You're gonna lose your microphone there.
Oh, thank you.
All right.
We'll just push this back in the locker.
What?
How you doing? Long time no see you. When the last time I saw Cobra? Yeah.
Double. Just be respectful to each other.
Oh yeah, double, triple fan now.
Good thinking.
Just so we're clear, I'm not opening.
They wouldn't let me over there.
If anyone leaves this
Oh,
area,
really?
Yeah, I have
get
no
back
idea
in
what
the
it was.
same spot. Okay.
A woman took her bra off.
Oh, that?
Yeah.
She took a bra. That's it.
And they were like spraying baby oil all over the place. How can they go back?
No, there's no reservation. You left. You have to try to go in back and try to get your spot. I'm not opening this. I'll try to.
No, I understand. I was just asking if I saw the barricades. Do you know how to just get back? Like, do you know what time?
You have to go back and go in from there.
Yeah.
Or there. No one's going to be coming in from there.
Oh, no, I know that. Okay.
Guys, this is for media.
Sergeant. Sergeant, we're terminating the level 1 of investigation.
Awesome. Like I say, this is police stuff.
Not necessary. No.
Oops, here.
Yeah, pass over. Yeah.
Teamwork! Hey!
I don't think I'm going to come back here. Listen, I don't know anything about what exits, but I would imagine
if they want to take him out,
is.
if you want to take up this court, you're never gonna see him. But believe me, you're never gonna see him.
Guys,
yeah, guys, he's got to, back this up.
You know what? Oh, we're good right here. Watch your foot 1 second. Here we go.
guys have a drone up?
What?
You guys have a drone up?
I feel like it's too far a flight to just go in.
It is far. It's honestly, it's closer from Japan.
Oh, right, okay, from Asia it's closer. What is it, 10 hours?
From Japan, it's like 9 hours. 9 hours.
You guys talking about how Hawaii? I just come back from that 16 hours flight from New York. I just come back from that 16 hours fucking flight.
From Hawaii?
From New York to Hawaii, 16 hours. Worth it.
Is it awesome or no?
Believe me, I was like, yeah, it's Hawaii, yeah. When I got there, it's a different world. It's not this. You be in the Caribbean. You be in the Caribbean. Imagine. It's worth it. It's worth it. Oh, Coco is awesome. Don't take me wrong. Coco is awesome. But Hawaii is that every island is different.
Really?
Completely different.
So now I need a month, right? I gotta go to Hawaii, I need a month.
I was there for 3 weeks. It was 9 nights.